Hey, welcome back to Say Mojo Homestead. It's the weekend, so we're gonna do with our highs and lows. You want to do yours first?
Sure.
Okay.
So my low, I'll start with my low. My low was that I didn't really get to do a lot of work this week. Our rooster's crowing in the background, so enjoy that.
Yeah.
It's the farm ambiance. But I still was waiting on my truck to get finished. And so, I was able to get a fair amount of like just kind of catching up on design stuff and stuff like bookwork and stuff like that. But it was just, I don't know. It's boring when that's all I do during the week because I like being outside, doing hands-on. I didn't do a lot of outside work. I mean, the silver lining in that is that it was really cold this week. And that part would have been miserable had I been outside all day long. My high, though, is that my truck's done. I got a message Friday, too late for us to go pick it up, unfortunately, and they're not open on the weekends, but the truck is done. So life is returning to normal. Super excited about that.
My high is that we have rearranged our kids' bedrooms, so
Yes.
they look really good, and I think they're just going to be more functional for them.
That was this weekend's project.
Right.
The Homestead project.
Yeah, of the week was to organize the kids' room. But I think that they'll just work better. And the kids are really excited about it, so that's fun too.
So,
And I didn't really have a low. We were doing fun math, and
because I was home all week.
It's true, actually. That was an awesome blessing because he could help with Joe and stuff like that. So that's why I had a great week.
Yeah. So, can we just take a moment real quick before we go any further to check out this Greenstalk behind me?
Oh my goodness.
Like, oh, okay, Butter.
She's like, I want to check
And
out
my
too.
dog that has really bad breath. Oh. But yeah, we're super excited about this Greenstalk and just the way that it is flourishing. The lettuce has really been doing well. Some of it started to bolt. Went ahead and cut it. I'm hoping now that the temperatures have dropped again, I don't really know if it will continue to try to bolt or not. So I'm kind of curious to see what that does. But the broccoli, which you probably cannot see at the bottom, is really coming in like big and healthy. Hasn't started creating like the little florets or anything, but yeah. I'm definitely sold on this Greenstalk thing. So
Yes,
if you don't have one,
amazing.
get one.
Yeah. It's like great for just any kind of like small gardener. It really would be great for a small space. Like
Yes.
for small space gardening.
Yeah, I mean, growing your own food
Yeah.
on a like limited area, it would be really good.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, it kind of leads into what we're going to talk about today. The differences and similarities between a prepper and a homesteader.
Yeah.
So there are definitely crossovers in these two categories, but then there are some things that definitely are different. And they run on a whole big spectrum.
And I think that with our world right now, that a lot of people are trying to figure out prepping and homesteading. Okay, so in comparing a prepper versus a homesteader, a lot of these things that we say are going to be very extreme cases. Like we said before, there is generally a lot of crossover between the two. So what we're going to talk about is typically true for a homesteader and typically true for a prepper. So the first thing I want to talk about is location. Most preppers are in the city or are not necessarily out in the middle of nowhere. They're prepping for things that would happen within the city limits. So they are going to not already be on a large plot of land. Whereas most homesteaders have at least an acre. There are, of course, small urban homesteads. Most homesteaders are looking for more land so they can grow their own food and provide for their family or for themselves. So location would be a big difference most of the time for a prepper versus a homesteader.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is the motivation behind the two. And this really kind of falls into that location that Cass was just talking about. And so for a prepper, fear is the motivating factor behind wanting to do it. A lot of it is fear driven, you know, whether it's like fear of the food industry, like going away or complete, grid shutdown or anything like that. Government, all of that stuff. Very fear driven. Whereas the homesteader is thinking more long-term sustainability in what they're doing, how they're growing food, how they're providing food, and thinking, how can this benefit us for the long term? Usually homesteaders get started because of like a health issue or just wanting to live more sustainable, healthier lives and have that option of being able to do that. Whereas a prepper is going to be really going out and thinking, okay, if something goes haywire and the world as we know it shuts down and doesn't operate normally for like 6 months or a year or whatever it may be, then they're thinking, how can we stockpile what we need to get through that and protect ourselves and basically like ready to put up arms if we need to. So that's really where those two ideas stem from. But there is a lot of crossover generally with people who are doing one or the other.
Emotionally, your motivation between being a prepper and a homesteader are a little bit different. Preppers feel a sense of urgency that comes with that fear, where they just need to get as much as they can, as fast as they can, so they're prepared for whatever. Most homesteaders want to provide for their families and for themselves, and so there's that desire, but there's also a joy found in providing and being self-sufficient. So it's not really about an urgency to make sure you will be okay if disaster strikes. It's more about the joy of being able to provide good, healthy food for your family. There are homesteaders that do feel that urgency. I'm not gonna lie, I felt that when COVID hit. We made some decisions that were out of that sense of urgency. And I still want to make sure I can do whatever I can to provide enough food for our family for a year. But I also want to enjoy what I'm doing and plant new things and experiment. I just want to enjoy learning new things about homesteading and about providing food for my family.
All right, so we got two more we're going to talk about. This one is more of like being prepared versus being equipped. And there are a lot of similarities in those two words, but typically a prepper is going to be more prepared for an event. That's kind of the mindset and what they're going for, is having everything they need to be prepared for whatever may be coming. Whereas a homesteader is more of the mindset of equipped. And so a homesteader is already actively doing things where they aren't really having to rely on the system as much. And so if something did happen, and I have no clue, fill in the blank on the scenario, but if something did happen where the prepper would need to go into like boom mode, a homesteader, generally speaking, is already set up to where they're not really going to be affected by any of that stuff. They're already growing sustainable food, whether it be like meat on the hoof or like what we do with the rabbits that reproduce, and garden, seed saving, all of that stuff. Whereas a prepper has already got everything and they're ready to go. So that would be another way where you really see the two differences between a prepper and a homesteader.
So the last thing we want to talk about is that a prepper typically has a really strong motivation and desire to make sure that they are self-protected. They are prepared on all fronts and that they know they can protect themselves and their families. Now, obviously, homesteaders want to protect themselves and their families, but from what we've seen, for the most part, is homesteaders are really more about community and reaching out to new people and developing relationships within the communities.
So those are just some of the ways that we really kind of looked at, the differences, and there are so many more. And again, I know we're overstressing this, but for some people, this is a little bit of a sensitive topic, and I don't want anybody to feel like we are like stereotyping them. These were very extreme situations, but there's some truth in it to some level, if you're doing either homesteading or you consider yourself a prepper. Again, there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
I would not say that we are 100% homesteaders. I mean, if you ask me, I'll ask you later if you agree with me. But for me, I would say we're probably somewhere in that like 60 to 70% homesteading and 30 to 40% kind of prepper mindset of like just thinking through like, okay, if blank happens, are we ready?
Yeah.
Type thing.
I would agree with that. I feel like that's a large reason why we started homesteading in the first place, was because we wanted to be prepared and we wanted to be self-sufficient. We did want to be able to cut some of our grocery costs, but we have animal feed and stuff that we didn't have before. I think that a large part of why we do what we do is because we enjoy it and we like having the food that we know what is in it and where it came from. But there is a part of me that wants to be prepared if anything happens, and I know I can provide for my family.
And I think for like a lot of people, you know, we fall into this category of COVID really did show us, and I know I say this a lot, but I mean, it's just reality. Like really did show us how broken the entire food system is.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, you know, that's, this is one way that we can kind of protect ourselves against that. And also just a way that we can ensure that, you know, we don't have to worry about being as affected by shortages as some other people.
Yeah. And I think that we're even seeing the effects of that now. I mean, you can go into the grocery store and there are empty shelves. And to me, I hear that, but I'm not worried about it, because I feel like if push came to shove, we have what we need to be okay. I mean,
right. And obviously we don't have everything. We're not completely self-reliant, but
right. We wouldn't die.
Good news. Another thing is, about, I don't know, 2 years ago, I was telling somebody, like, I really believe that we're heading into a time where like the small farm and local farm is going to be taking a much bigger role. I remember thinking and really believing that we were kind of as a society moving more towards where we were going to see the importance of that on all levels. And so I think that also just backyard gardening and stuff like that, and that really has grown a lot.
Yeah.
So with all of this being said, we would love to hear what you guys say. If you agree with us or disagree with us on any of these things, let us know.
Yeah.
If you are a prepper or homesteader or wherever, I would love to hear.
Or in between.
Yeah. For some of you homesteaders out there that do watch some of these videos that we put out there, I would love to hear kind of where you say you are, you know, on a like 50-50 scale or whatever. Just out of curiosity. I mean, we have friends who proudly like tell us like we're preppers. So I mean, we don't have any hard feelings or judgments on any one end of this. But thank you guys for joining us. If you like this material, as always, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment, like I said. Subscribe if you haven't already. We would love to have you subscribe to this channel, just as kind of a way of saying, hey, we like what you're doing. We're encouraging you through that. And also just hit that notification bell down there so that way you know every time we put a video up. Have a great week and be blessed.